The new numbers from the Commerce Department showing the economy shrank in the first quarter of the year, down 0.3%. That's compared to the last quarter of 2024, which saw it grow by 2.4%. The president was quick to point fingers.
That's Biden. That's not Trump, because we came in on January, this is quarterly numbers, and we came in and I was very against everything that Biden was doing in terms of the economy.
Well, keeping him honest, he took office on January 20th, so the first 20 days of the quarter were not on his watch. However, the other 2 months and 11 days were, something he didn't mention. And beyond that, he laid the groundwork for blaming President Biden for the next 3 months as well.
We came in on January 20th. So this is Biden. And you could even say the next quarter is sort of Biden, because it doesn't just happen on a daily or an hourly basis. But we're turning it around.
So if you're keeping track, the president is now blaming the former president for this current bad quarter and perhaps the next bad quarter as well, even though by that time the former president will have been out of office for almost 6 months. And even then, by his reckoning, it will still be the Biden economy. Yet this is the same man who began taking credit for what was then a booming stock market nearly a year before taking office. Quoting now from something he posted on social media on the 29th of January of 2024, "This is the Trump stock market because my polls against Biden are so good that investors are projecting that I will win, and that will drive the market up." Bottom line, it was the Trump stock market when Biden was president. It's the Biden economy now that Trump is, and a cabinet full of praise for it all. Perspective now from CNN senior political and global affairs commentator Rahm Emanuel. He served as White House chief of staff in the Obama administration, as a former Chicago mayor and ambassador to Japan. I mean, as someone who has served at virtually all levels of government, what stands out to you about this cabinet Trump-era tradition of everybody going around praising the president? That's not normal, is it?
I think the answer's in the question. Let me say this. As chief of staff to President Obama, senior advisor to President Clinton, if I had acted like a psychopath like any one of those cabinet members, they would have rushed me to the White House medical unit. To their great credit, they were confident enough in themselves. They wanted you to challenge them. They wanted you to ask questions. And I did that frequently. I jokingly say sometimes I started working for President Obama. I was 6'3", 250 pounds. I'm now 5'8" and 148, dripping wet. They wanted you to challenge. They were confident enough. But on a more serious note than that, we're on the 100-day mark. Roosevelt did it by governing, passing laws, signing them into law. You got to look at this meeting, the cabinet meeting, and the way it was conducted in the context of the executive orders, no legislation. This is a style in which the President Trump does not want to govern like President Roosevelt. He wants to rule. Totally different type of context, totally different flavor, totally different style with a different substance. There is no governing here in the sense of legislation. The bulk of the executive orders are on immigration. There's not an immigration bill that he's presented to Congress. So it doesn't exist in the sense of the norm. And I think it actually has, in the political context, two things. Core supporters like it because it reflects action. Stylistically, it is pushing away independents, energizing Democrats, and even leaving a bad taste with a good proportion of Republicans. So I don't actually think it's benefiting him, this kind of notion of ruling versus governing, which is much more in the traditional norm. And that's why people are having such an adverse reaction to it and pushing back on it.
It's interesting to me, though, that for a president who likes to project strength, his susceptibility to praise, it's very apparent to anybody who interacts with him. You know, back in February, the new British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, came to meet President Trump at the White House, and he clearly knew to use flattery. He opened up the meeting presenting, before they got down to actual diplomatic business, an invitation from King Charles for a second state visit, and he sold it. I want to play for our viewers how he sold it to the president, because he used a lot of, well, take a look.
This is really special. This has never happened before. This is unprecedented. I think that just symbolizes the strength of the relationship between us. So this is a very special letter. I think the last state visit was a tremendous success.
It was.
His Majesty the King wants to make this even better than that. So this is truly historic.
I mean, it's I was going to say embarrassing almost, but I mean, it's wise for people to do that.
It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
But it's a weakness. I mean, if you're so susceptible to be flattering to your face, if that's what it takes to kind of wash over you and then someone gets down to business, it seems remarkable to me.
Anderson, I can say this as having been ambassador, worked also in other countries and talked to other leaders. Every foreign ministry overseas is taking a daily, if not a long-term analysis of the president and what works, what doesn't work, etc. What comes across, you talk about the flattery, but what comes across also in this psychoanalysis they'll do is the weakness, the vulnerability. Then also the lack of honesty, blaming somebody else, not taking responsibility. That also is figuring into their analysis. That will tell you how either world leaders will stay away, if they're going to approach, how they're going to approach it. So yes, the flattery, but also in that psychological profile they're building of a person, the lack of veracity, no truth, the need and desire for constant glorification. You have to praise him or thank him. You saw that early. I don't know if you remember this early in the administration, that if you wanted to come to see the president, you had to praise him publicly. You had to thank him publicly. The attack on President Zelensky was you've never said thank you enough.
Right.
So you have to, they are building a psychological profile. They know him. And I will guarantee you, and then put in also one additional layer. They all watch the elections in Canada. They're going to watch the elections in Australia. There's like a 5 to 7 point bump just opposing President Trump in your own domestic politics. So those profiles get built in foreign ministries in how to approach or not approach the United States and specifically this administration.
Well, the degree to which he has unified countries around the world internally, I mean, Canada, elsewhere, and yet so not unified his own country.
If you think, I don't mean to cut you off, but I apologize for that, but if you think of this era as the era of the Indo-Pacific, Asia on the rise, 4 years ago, China was moving, our economy, we were seen as slipping, we were seen as moving in the fact that America was declining. We used China's wolf warrior, we used China's economic hardship that they created on themselves to isolate them both economically, politically, diplomatically, and in the region. That's why they were so angry at the trilateral relationship between the United States, China, and South Korea. They never saw that coming. The one also between the Philippines, the Quad relationship between India, Australia, Japan, and the United States. They were politically isolated. They were economically created their own on goal and isolated themselves. They were trying to export their markets, creating domestic troubles in other countries, which made China the problem. With the president's tariffs, with our own actual version of wolf warrior, we have made ourselves the problem and got China out of the problem box that they put themselves in. And now we're the isolated party. And trust me, confronting China in the Indo-Pacific, it is better to have India, Australia, Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, and other nations aligned with us. Yeah. We're stronger because we have a solid bloc. In that case, China's now going around the region and using our own kind of offensive economic and political actions, not to stand with the United States, but to isolate us. We've become the isolated party where China was the isolated party. And that's the crisis there. That's the missed opportunity, which will have huge impact on national security, economic security for the United States.